Good morning, everyone. This is Joyelle Brandt here from Parenting with PTSD. And today I'm having a conversation with one of our contributing authors, Lara Donachie. And we are going to be speaking on the topic of getting and staying sober while parenting with PTSD. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about Lara before we get started. She is a single mom by choice of twin boys. She works in healthcare and has been sober for 12 years. As a survivor of childhood and adult sexual assault with a history of repressed memories and PTSD, Lara is actively working on recovery. Her favorite quote is, "We've all got both light and dark inside us. What matters is the part we choose to act on. That's who we really are," from J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter, Order of the Phoenix. And I also really love that quote. It's a fantastic one. So welcome, Lara, and thank you so much for being here today.
Morning. Well, it's good afternoon here.
Right, it's afternoon for you, morning for me. I'm on the West Coast. And so we're going to have a few questions we'll run through. And if you have any additional questions that you want to ask, feel free to put them in the comments and we'll see if we have time to get to them. We're not sure how much time we have this morning. This is my first time using a Be Live interview, so I'm learning as I go this morning. So Lara, when did you start drinking and how did this correlate to your history of childhood sexual abuse?
My history of abuse started when I was really young. I was under the age of 5. And my drinking started when I was in my early teens. My drinking was never normal. My goal was always to just not feel. Mm-hmm. And so whenever I drank to excess, and it was basically just to shut down and to not be present. It was never really to have a good time. I immediately realized that when I drank, I didn't have to feel. And so there's also a history of prescription drugs in my story where I was when I was introduced when I got my wisdom teeth removed when I was 19, and those worked even better to just completely knock you out.
Right.
And so and then as I got older, I would mix them. And being in healthcare, I knew what to say and when to say it in order to get what I wanted and thought I needed.
Right.
So I just did what I needed to do in order to get what I thought I needed.
Right. And when and how did you end up getting sober? What was that like for you?
I was married to another woman, and she left. She couldn't. In looking retrospectively, my trauma history had really impacted my relationship and my ability to be able to connect with another human being and my ability to show up in a relationship. And not that she didn't bring her own baggage to the table also, but my drinking and using really impacted it also. And when she left, I spun into about a 4 to 5 month period of time where I actually don't have any memories of that time at all. And I ended up actually coming in to get sober and I call into the rooms after a suicide attempt. And I went and spent 5 days on an inpatient unit after a suicide attempt, and I was I'm grateful that 2 nurses there broke their anonymity to me around their own experience with alcohol and drugs, and told me where to go and meetings that had worked for them, and gave me direction. I could take direction when I first got sober, but I couldn't ask for help, but I could take direction, and so I just took the direction they gave me.
So was that a really important aspect for you? It's one thing to hear from a healthcare professional, oh, this is what you should be doing in your case, but it's entirely different, isn't it, when you hear from somebody who has been through what you've been through and can say from personal experience, this worked for me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was very, very pivotal for me. You know, I didn't want to hear from any healthcare professionals, you know, what they thought I should do with my life.
Right. Yeah. How much has your recovery from alcoholism and recovery from to your sexual abuse been intertwined and triggered each other?
They've very much been intertwined, but I didn't really realize it till I was about 8 years sober. When I first got sober, I just followed the directions and did what I was supposed to be doing. Sorry, somebody just walked into the house. And I didn't realize somebody was coming home.
Life with children, that's okay. We're all parents.
You know, I just followed the directions. I did what I was supposed to. I followed the steps. I was going to therapy. I was doing everything I thought I should. And I had some memory of my childhood sexual abuse, and I was working on that. And I had memory of my current, my most recent adult experiences. But, you know, I hit a certain point in my recovery where I just wasn't moving, where I was stuck. And that's where the parenting piece came in, that I started getting triggered as a parent. And that's, you know, and I realized in retrospect that while I was getting triggered as a parent, and I wasn't moving in my recovery, I then started having all the flashbacks and memories of the childhood sexual assault stuff that was happening, abuse stuff that was happening, that I had repressed and that I was not remembering. And I kind of hit almost like a second bottom, like an emotional bottom in my recovery. Yes. And it almost became more challenging in my recovery because, the 12 steps are laid out, and it's a beautiful program, and I still practice it and I still go to meetings, but you know, it was written by a bunch of men many, many years ago, and it's not written for trauma survivors. And so I am grateful that I got sober first, and then my trauma stuff came up, and I didn't have to come into it with a trauma history and try and negotiate it. However, it can be done. I know lots and lots of people who have, a significant trauma history who have been able to get into the program and stay sober. And luckily, there's more than one way of getting sober. It's not a prescribed way. This is just what's worked for me.
Right. How old are your children now? And what does parenting with PTSD and recovering from addiction look like now? So this is 12 years since you started your journey into sobriety. So how have things changed for you?
So my kids are 10 and a half. I have 10 and a half year old twin boys. So they've never seen me drink or use. And it's hard as a single parent who is trying to have her self-care be at the forefront of things in order to be able to then show up for them. It's challenging at best. So, there's, slogans that they use and in all areas of recovery, not just in the rooms of, whatever you put in front of your recovery, you're going to lose. And, put the oxygen mask on yourself first so that you can, and all those types of things. And, some days I don't get to take care of myself very well because, I have two kids. One of my kids is special needs, and he requires a lot of attention at times. And they're just kids in general, and they require a lot of attention.
Yes.
And so I, just dealing with, the PTSD alone is enough,
Absolutely.
And then to add, making my sobriety take a front row also is extremely challenging. So, I sit down every week and I plan out my week, and, I go to therapy 1 to 2 times a week. And then I need to go to 1 or 2 meetings a week. And then, I sponsor somebody, so I need to meet with her with coffee once a week. And, and then it's just all the other stuff that goes along with taking care of yourself, and doctor's appointments, and, and everything else that, I have chronic health issues, which, a lot of people have who have trauma histories, and, I'm taking care of myself with that. And that's just taking care of me, never mind taking care of the kids and, my son who has special needs and medical needs. And, it's a full-time job, and then I still work. And so, and like I said, I'm a single parent. Luckily, I have some support, but it's not, it's a full-time job. And then, you add on, what we talk a lot about in our support group, in the support room, that, it's a lot of trying to be gentle with myself around the fact that, I still react frequently from a place of hypervigilance, and I still react from a place frequently of fear, and of being in that place of being a child of sexual assault, and that definitely still plays a big part in my parenting. Not nearly as much as it did, 4 or 5 years ago when I was first starting to uncover a lot of this and addressing it, but it still is definitely there. And so, so when I go to bed at night, it's, I'm very grateful to do so. But,
Yes.
It's a big thing of, okay, you did the best you did today. And, and I'm frequently telling myself, and somebody told me a long time ago when I first got sober, is, we all do the best we can in any given day, but my best today doesn't have to be my best tomorrow. And so, so forgive myself for today, be compassionate for myself today, and then show up again tomorrow, learning from what happened today. And so,
yeah. Don't you think that self-compassion is the biggest key in recovery?
It is, but it's also one of the hardest things to practice, at least for me.
Me too. Absolutely. I have a little sticky note on my mirror right now that says, "You've done enough." At the end of the day, you've done enough today. Mm-hmm. Because always we can be so unrelentingly cruel to ourselves and have such high standards.
Yeah, and and there's always that voice that's like, you should be doing better, or you should be further along in this, or
yes.
Haven't you been doing this long enough that you should be past this, or those types of things. So
yeah, that little voice that always says, oh, you should be, that whenever there's a should in the beginning of the sentence, I'm in trouble. This is not a good path to actually be going down. Got a couple minutes left, and I just wanted to touch on a bit of some of the things you talked about and I just also wanted to say, for people who don't know, we do have a Parenting with PTSD support group, and that's what Lara was referring to earlier, that you can join. And this is a closed private group for people who are looking for support and just understanding. And Lara is one of our moderators for that group, and she does amazing work supporting other people there. And I wanted to touch in about the topic of safety, because the piece that you contributed to the Parenting with PTSD book I was just rereading it, and it was such a powerful thing for me, because I think this is something that is such a huge issue for all of us survivors, which is navigating that relationship with our personal sense of safety. And how something that may not seem like a big deal to somebody else on the outside, for us, can trigger large feelings of feeling unsafe inside our bodies, inside ourselves. And when you have small children that you have to be responsible for care of, and especially in your circumstance where your children were born prematurely and they were in the NICU for quite a while, you had a lot of, I mean, that in itself is a major life trauma.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got this major life trauma that you're dealing with your small babies, trying to take care of them, which I'm sure triggers a lot of feelings from your childhood abuse, particularly what one of my therapists told me that I always resonate, which is whenever you feel helpless and hopeless, that's going to be a trigger for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so was that something that for you had to learn to identify how much of this is what's happening right now and how much of this is the trigger in the past? And
yeah, and that's still an ongoing, so, when the fear comes up, which it still does. I mean, it's not like it just goes away. And that's, and I think that's one thing that I've learned in recovery, is that the feelings don't necessarily go away. It's that we, for me, and what I'm told is that we learn how to recognize them and we learn how to kind of sift them out.
Right.
And it becomes more natural to be able to do it. And so the fear doesn't go away for me. I still have that first reaction of, that hypervigilant, wanting to freeze reaction, and then wanting to run. But today I try, and most of the time I'm successful, at least with my kids, to have that moment of fear and then to take a step back and say, oh, wait a minute, there's nothing here right now in this moment that I need to be afraid of. And then to be able to, and then to decide, is this something that I'm experiencing from the past? Is this related to something that happened before? Or is this something that's going on right now? And is there anything that I have to worry about for my children? And, one of the things that is comforting to me is that, my children have a sense of safety for the most part. The one that has special needs, we're working on it, and that's one of the goals for him, is to have a sense of safety. And just the fact that that's one of his goals and that the adults in his life are focusing on that is comforting to me. And so to be able to, have all that in place and then to be able to just take the step back and say, wait a minute, this is being addressed, and my other son, he has a sense of safety. If you talk it out with him, he knows. This is all about me and my stuff, and it's coming from back here. And so, but I still have to frequently go through all of those steps.
Yes, absolutely. It's time for us to wrap up now. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for sharing your story with us and for all of the work that you do with the Parenting with PTSD support group. Is there any last words that you wanted to share for other people who are working through addiction recovery and dealing with PTSD at the same time?
Just that, this is not a one-size-fits-all experience, whether it be through, recovery from addiction or alcoholism or through trauma. It's just keep moving forward and just keep asking for help. That's been what is working for me. And the whole thing is just not to give up, and to not be ashamed to ask for help, and not to let that shame get in the way, because it's when that happens that I think we end up getting stuck. So,
Right.
And thank you so much. I appreciate this.
Wonderful. So this is Parenting with PTSD, and we have great conversations here and on our support page about what it takes to parent after childhood trauma. And if you are looking for support or information, you can check us out at parentingwithptsd.com. Have a beautiful day and be kind to yourselves.